Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're based in the world. I'm happy to welcome you to the A4Q World Congress. I'm accompanied by Amanda today. Hello, Amanda. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And I'm happy to hand over to you directly and go.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Take a second to come up. Hi, so again, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be a part of A4Q World Congress. A little bit about me is my name is Amanda Logue. I am located in Canada. I started out as a developer and I turned into a software tester. I spent about 15 years in the insurance industry. In the last 5, I've been in the gambling industry. I've been involved in the CSTB for 5 years, which is the Canadian Software Testing Board, and I've been the Director of Marketing for the last 3. I've been involved in the ISTQB for the last 4 years, and I've been a member of the TBOC working group as a chair or vice chair for the last 3 years. So it's great to be here, and I'm happy. And so today we're going to go over testing in the gambling industry. As you can see, here's our agenda. So we'll just talk about the gambling industry in general, casino games ecosystem, the casino games areas that we test, and some QA metrics that we use, and then how you can become a certified gambling industry tester yourself. And then at the end, if you have any questions, I'll be available. So in 2019, the gambling industry was a $451 billion US dollar industry. Along with everything that's happened in the past few years with COVID and everything, things have changed dramatically for us. They are expecting everything in the gambling industry to come back and to prosper and be more profitable in the next couple of years. But one thing that's changed a lot over the last year is, along with everyone else, is the online gambling has grown crazy amounts. So it's had a major increase by about 11%. There are over 400 different jurisdictions and regulators for the gambling industry. So, one second. So each jurisdiction has its own rules that must be tested in addition to functional regression, integration, and performance testing. So each jurisdiction has a set of rules that each game must comply to. So if you want to release a game in Australia, it's going to have different rules that you need to comply to in South Africa. The same game can go to multiple jurisdictions. We just need to test it against those different sets of rules and regulations. The business ecosystem. So game developers want to make games that are interesting for players to earn money in casinos. Happy casinos buy more games. So the more players are playing, the more money they're making, the more those casinos are going to go back to those manufacturers to try to get it. There's a few different type of developers. There's an independent developer, and they'll develop their own game, and then they'll try to find a manufacturer or a casino to distribute that game to. But then there's also manufacturers who develop their own games for the different types of machines they have. Machine manufacturers, they test their internal or purchase games. They ensure there are a few defects as acceptable, ensure the game works on all the different technologies that it should be played on. And then we have what's called an independent test lab, and they're also referred to as an ITIL or an ITL. They test that the game follows the rules for each of the jurisdictions that the games are going to be played in. And if there's any defects or if it doesn't meet any of those jurisdictional rules, they'll return the game back to those manufacturers. And then the regulatory commissions for each jurisdiction that approves the game they approve the game after the ITIL has completed their testing and have passed and certified the game. And then this allows the manufacturers to ship the game to casinos. and then they go to the casino floor or they go online, depending on where that game is expected to be played. Manufacturers provide different EGMs or gambling devices to casinos. There's many different manufacturers out there, and we have EGMs, we have BLTs, we have bingo machines, and then there's online gaming, which is, it can be on your PC, your tablet, your device, anything, your phone, anything that you can play in a casino. Basically, now you can play on your phone or any device online. So the ITIL's job is to ensure that the game works the way they're designed to work and that they're following different gambling laws all around the world. So the casino game software development lifecycle, it's very similar to a regular life cycle that anyone in the testing industries used to. We just have a little bit separate because of the compliance phase that we have to do. So there's many different types of products. So we can have a new game or a reskin, localization, there's platform, there's pay tables, hardware, there's server. A reskin is when you have a game and we've already tested it, we've already certified it, but then you just reskin it. So you just put a new image overlay on top of it, and that's what that means. So here you can see there's many iterations per product. So the developer and the manufacturer, they develop the game, QA tests it, we do the functional exploratory, we do some pre-compliance, and this goes back and forth just like you would any software that you test today. But once this is done and once this is passed, then it gets submitted to the ITIL, and then that's where the ITIL will then test it. They'll either certify that game or they send it back because it doesn't meet some of the regulations or there's something that needs to get fixed. And then we'll start back here. Obviously, they'll fix it and we get it pushed back up. Once the regulator approves the product, then the game's released out, so it can be certified. Now you can pass a game for example. So say like I had said before, I wanted to have a game go to Australia and I wanted to have a game go to South Africa. Well, when we're doing this testing, the ITIL might be able to pass for Australia, but not pass for South Africa. That game can still get pushed out and be live in Australia, and why they're still going back and fixing the game for South Africa. So we won't hold that release back for the areas that it has passed on. So next we'll talk about some casino games in the ecosystem. So there are multiple casino game devices. A casino tester, you need to understand these different devices, their ecosystem, and to understand why we test these specific areas. So we have a traditional slot, we have the VLTs, we have a class 2 bingo device, race and sports wagering, we have online gaming, and there's also some other just devices in there as well. So our traditional slot, when you think of that, a lot of people think of Vegas, or at least here for me, I'm in Canada, so a lot of people will refer to Vegas as our traditional slot machines. These machines, they come with 3 or more reels, which spin when there's a button that's pushed. Each terminal is a standalone device. It contains its own RNG, and which is a random number generator. So that's what will help determine the win. Each terminal is connected to a centralized computer system that allows the lottery jurisdiction to monitor gameplay and collect the revenue. A minimum percentage payout is usually written into the jurisdictional laws. So depending on which jurisdiction you're in, some will have a return to player so there needs to be, I don't know, it can be 87% of people need to be a win. So that's set out by your jurisdiction law, and that's what that's referring to. There's a class 3 slot machines, and they include a currency detector that validates the money that's inserted into play. And then the selection process is, so the player will pull the handle or they'll push a button. The random number generated, select the raw random numbers from the RNG. They scale the raw random numbers to be usable numbers. They map those numbers to the game elements, and then they evaluate the outcome. They determine the award associated with the outcome and display the outcome to the player, and then they'll pay the award. With VLs, they're very similar. A VLT is a gambling machine that allows gamblers to bet on an outcome of a video game. As I said, it's similar to a slot machine. They're their own standalone device. Each terminal is connected to the centralized system. The VLT is set up like a traditional lottery with a finite pool of predetermined outcomes. So the game selection process here is the player initiates the wager. The machine randomly selects the outcome from the available pool. The machine evaluates the prize that's associated with the outcome, and the machine determines how to display the results to the player. And then the machine will pay the player, hopefully. Class 2 bingo devices. So a bingo device is also called a class 2. It also looks very familiar or similar to a traditional slot, but in the back end, the game is actually playing a bingo game. If you go into a casino, you can see there'll be a bingo card that's usually on the display. And what's different about these is the electronic game goes until there's a winner. So the selection process here is the player initiates the wager and purchases the bingo card. The bingo server conducts the ball game. Participating machines receive the outcome of the ball. Participating machines evaluate the cards, and machine shows an entertaining display of the ball drop. And the bingo goes until the game goes until there's a winner, and then the winner's paid. Race and sports wagering. So this is actually betting on an activity that's predicting a sports result and placing a wager on the outcome. And it's not restricted just to sports events. It can be on anything. I know in the past we've actually had we've done bets on elections and those type of things. So it's started as sports, but there is also other things that can be done. There's many different types of sports betting that you can do. So there's a money line bet, and this is where one team is favored over the other. And then there's spread betting, and that's where there's like a handicap. So say, for example, the captain or the superstar of the team is injured and they're not playing today. Well, then that team has a handicap. They're less likely to win. And a proposition bet is an example of that. Could be like who's going to win the coin toss for the NFL game or something. Parlay is an example of that is when 5 games are happening tonight and you bet on all 5 of those games. So if you win, you'll win a lot. So there's 2 different types of parlays. There's a parlay and there's a progressive parlay. The progressive parlay is, so the parlay, you need to win all the games you bet on, but you can also win more money. The progressive parlay, if you lose, it's okay. You can still win. You just wouldn't win as much if you did win all 5 games because it's kind of a safer bet. And then future wagers, this is you would bet on the beginning of a season. So who's going to be the champion at the end of the season? So for me, I'm in Canada again, so hockey is a big thing. So who's going to win the Stanley Cup? You would bet on the beginning of the season, and if they win, then you win at the end. So that's a lot about sports betting. Online gambling. So anything that you can play in a casino, you can play online these days. So there's table games, there's social games, there's VLT, poker, there's sports, there's lottery, there's all kinds of different things. Anything you play in a land-based casino, you can now play on your device. So that's opened the world up. And like I've said, that's changed a lot in the last few years, especially with COVID. Everything's gone mobile, mobile and online. It's changed a lot for us. So there's also electronic table games, and then the mobile. So there's mobile apps. You can play some of the casinos just on their website, but then there's mobile apps as well that you can play games with as well. So what do we do when we're testing? So being a casino tester means that you understand both the ISTQB foundation level techniques, and there's a unique set of testing that we do for casino as well. So um, yes, you're still going to do your functional testing. You're still going to have some requirements, and you're going to test those. But then we go above and beyond, and we do these other things that are really specific to gambling. So we do math testing. So we test the pay tables, the permutation, the random number generators, and we ensure that those are acting like they should. So a pay table is, I'm not sure if you've seen on a casino game or not, where you can flick over and it'll tell you your payout and what you should win. So we do the calculations on that to make sure that, yeah, I did this and I did win that amount. These symbols hit, and yes, I did win that amount. And then we do, like I had said before, the return to player amount percentage. So if the player is supposed to get returned 85% of the time, 85% of the time when we play that game, somebody is winning. So those are some of the things that we just around math. With audio testing, there's audio testing in a lot of software, but for a gambling machine, we need to make sure that it entices the player to keep playing, or when they're walking by, it'll draw their attention so they will come and play that casino game. And it really needs to enhance their play so that they continue to play. And I guess that kind of goes in line with the fun factor and player perspective. Um, we need to make sure that the games are fun to play. Yeah, it needs to match the specs. You're right, but it also needs to be fun and entertaining. And if we see issues with that, we need to raise those, because if it's not going to do well, if no one finds it fun to play, then it's not going to do well on the casino floor. Then it's kind of a waste of time and money for the manufacturers and for the casinos. And we also have compliance testing, which I've said a couple times. So there's over 440 different certification boards worldwide. These boards, they each have separate rules that a game must comply with, and one game can be played in every one of those jurisdictions. So if that game is going to go to all those 440 jurisdictions, then we need to test against all those different sets of rules and regulations. Compliance testing versus gambling testing. I think we have a good handle on compliance testing, but it validates that the product meets regulatory requirements. And gambling quality assurance testing verifies the quality, the performance, and the reliability of the product. Again, so compliance testing, we've gone over. So the ITIL, they'll make sure that the game is good, it meets all those rules, those regulations. If the product fails that compliance testing, it'll get returned back. Before gambling products are ready for compliance testing, a full range of QA testing must occur. This includes exploratory, functional, regression, pre-compliance, integration, performance testing, is just to name a few. As you can imagine, to do your QA testing is cheaper than it is to do your compliance testing. Same as any other industry we're in. The further you get in that life cycle, the more expensive things are to fix. So they want to find everything as early as possible. And ideally, the independent test lab, there isn't any issues by the time they get there. So some QA testing overview. So we do the same kind of activities that that you would do in any software life cycle. So we do test planning, we do some test analysis, the implementation, we do the execution, we have test closure activities, we have exit criteria, so we need to make sure everything's passing. And if there's a certain range that can pass or not, we do component testing, integration, system, all the same testing that we would do in a typical software, we also do again for gambling. We have functional, non-functional, experimental, all of those things. So we do a full gamut of testing like we would in regular software development life cycle. So we have exploratory testing under our black box. We do some white box testing. We do a mix of everything. Sometimes it depends on if we've had this game before. If it's just a reskin, we might do some exploratory testing and some functional testing. We wouldn't do the full like scale of testing that we would have. But if it's a brand new game, we've never seen it, the manufacturer's new to us, then we're going through every little nick and nanny cranny until we get used to the game, until we get used to the manufacturer. And then it's same as any other software. You use your experience. Oh, do you know what? On the last game we had from this, it's very similar. And we had 5 issues in the math testing and 3 things in the audio. Let's test everything, but let's really focus there because that's where we think. So let's start our testing there so that we can get through those issues and get them knocked out and get them back to the developer as soon as possible. So very similar, like I said, to what you would do for a normal software. So some typical areas that we test. So we test the game testing. So here we'll do artwork and we'll test the game functionality, the engine, the bonus features, if there's tournaments, if there's a game recall, anything along the game itself. And we'll compare that to the game spec and make sure that it's all working as expected. And then for math testing, so here we do the pay table testing, we do the RNG testing, we do some things around that. RGS is, so this is like a third-party integration, and we just do some integration testing. This will integrate into the platform, and it's kind of how the game will actually test, or will communicate to the platform. So during the platform testing, we have the player registration and accounts, some shutdown and recovery, progressive jackpots. So that's a jackpot that will continue to grow as the players are playing. So if you don't lose, or if you lose, it will add money into this progressive jackpot. So that's part of that platform testing, because there can be the jackpots can be just for the game itself, or it can be a linked jackpot for multiple games within the casino, or it can even be a wide area progressive jackpot, which is linked out to other casinos. Obviously, if it's linked to another casino, it has to be within the same jurisdiction just because of the regulations that we have, but that's a part of all of that. There's geolocation, communication, reporting. As you can imagine, with any finance, money, any transactions that's going through, there's a ton of reporting and a ton of security that needs to be there. And then the system and network security testing. So that's all those controls. We do pen testing. And we make sure that no one can get in. There's another part of testing that we do too, which is some RG, which is responsible gambling testing. And that's more on the online, where not necessarily online, but there's rules and regulations. So for example, you can't go into a casino unless you're a certain age. If you're doing online gambling, you can only have so much money that's allowed to be in your player's wallet at a certain amount of time. And certain games are allowed in certain jurisdictions, and there's those kinds of things as well that get tested under this fair gaming. So a typical game, where do we find defects? The graphics are wrong, they're not what they're supposed to be. The documentation doesn't comply with the spec. The game rules aren't followed. There's a problem with the RNG. The history, payouts, the place of the game don't play what was supposed to be. There's certification issues. There's all kinds of things. Another interesting thing that we have to do as well is we do what they call as a power hit. So if I'm in the middle of a game playing with a machine, and I have a certain amount of money and I've won this, and I just the power goes out in the casino, or something happens and the game shuts down. Well, when that game gets rebooted, it needs to have all the history of what was played. It needs to have the amount of funds that were in that game before it was shut down, and the history of the games that were there, so that we know that when that game comes up, that player is going to be there. They're going to know, oh, yeah, I had $10.50 in my ready to available, and yeah, I still have $10.50. So those types of things are also there that we need to that we focus on as well. And obviously, we need to make sure if it's an actual cabinet that we're testing, we need to make sure that people can't get in, and they can't get into the lockbox, and those things are. And then there's different jurisdictional rules, like for compliance, if those the money machines, they are inside the cabinet in a locked, and there's no way that you can get to them without having the key. And there's things like that. So we have exploratory testing. I'm going to go through this a little quick because I only have a couple minutes left. So exploratory testing is very similar like you would do on your regular exploratory testing. So that's why I'm going to skip over this one. Your functional casino game testing. So that's a lot. Like I said, you test the game setup and configuration, your functionality, your gameplay, your graphics, your game messages. So if I'm playing, does the game and I won, does it come up with you've won and show me the amount, or does it showing that you've lost for some reason? So just to make sure things are consistent with what's actually happening. Platform testing. So this is where we make sure that all the platform is running well, and that everything, if you're a land-based casino, all the machines are connected to this platform, and all the stats are going to this platform in this main system. So, and there's a meters, there's diagnostic logs, there's all kinds of things there. And this is that power up that I was saying. If the machine gets unplugged, all the stats are still there that you would expect to be there. Casino system testing. So here's where we do some end-to-end testing. So we test the actual flow of the system, more realistic end-to-end scenario. So this is where you have the casino set up, it's connected to the land base, everything looks good, and it plays out. So, and the player can go redeem their money. So when they get their tickets out of the machine, and all of those, that's all being tracked as you would expect. Protocol testing. So this is really just that the communication is all working through. There's different protocols that you can, different protocols that are used between the casinos and the EGM and the manufacturers. But yeah, so that's really what that's about. Hardware testing. So this is where I was saying that you confirm that there's no forced entry can happen, that people can't get into the box, the tower light's working and it's on there. So somebody wins, the light goes off. So that's a lot of what the hardware testing is. Compliance testing. So this is, again, where you test to make sure the game will comply with whatever jurisdiction you're submitting that game for. We also do some performance testing. When we conduct performance testing, that's really based on the platform, the online gambling, the mobile, the lotteries. There's less performance testing on the actual games themselves because they're a standalone machine, and they're not connected to a lot of other things. So it's one person playing it. But we will test that all the information going to the platform, that will work if we have a big load on it, or if it's a progressive, and if it's a link progressive, that all the information feeding up there, if there's a big load, that will work. So that's the kind of performance testing we do. There is some automation testing. A lot of the problems with casino is that once a game is certified and it is out there and ready for the world to play, it doesn't change very often unless it has to. They will add a new skin, or they'll add a new version of the game, or they'll create a new game. So the automation testing is there. It's just not used for game specific. We will use it for the math testing and the pay table testing because that gives you a good ROI. For mobile testing, for online gambling, there is more there, and it's around the player management and that kinds. of areas and the platform, but not on the game itself. We don't necessarily always do a lot of automation because there's not a ton of ROI on that. I am over time, so I'm going fast. So casino QA metrics. So the big thing here is your first pass percentage. So if if the game has gone to the ITIL and it passes its very first time and they say, yep, that's certified, it can go to that jurisdiction, then it is considered, it's got a first pass is what they call it. And that's a big stat that we use often. So if we've done the QA testing, then it gets a first pass when it goes there, then it's just good for us. So how to become a certified gambling industry tester. So I was a co-author of the gambling industry tester certification, the syllabus. The CSTB and the ISTQB partnered up, and I was one of the co-authors of this. So you can now take an exam. You can get certified. The syllabus was released back in 2019. You can contact your local board or your exam provider to become certified. If you're in Canada, we're actually running a promotion right now, so you can actually save 20% on that. So yeah, that's how you can become certified in the gambling industry. Like I said, COVID did take a little hit to us, but we're expecting things and everything's projecting to come back stronger and better than before. So it's a great time to get certified and hit the ground running. Is there any questions?
Hi, Amanda. Thank you. For now, we didn't receive any questions, so it seems like everyone is satisfied and happy with the presentation. We saw that already, like multiple people were watching, and there's a big interest in the topic. And so I think most people will watch it afterwards, and there will be maybe more questions coming up. But Amanda will be available in the virtual Congress Hall of the A4Q World Congress. So she will be in the lounge, and you can go to the virtual Congress Hall website, which is a4qworldcongress.com. You can click on the link that you want to enter the virtual Congress Hall, and then you will find Amanda and you can ask her more questions. So thank you, Amanda, for joining us and making this event even better. And maybe we see each other in the virtual Congress Hall or on the next A4Q World Congress. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye.